so much of the chatter and the junk that I actually don't need to figure out, I just got the sense that I could drop it. And it was so powerful, it even gives me chills to think about. Hey friends, it's Kirsten here from The Confident Dancer, and I want to talk today about rest. It has been not only on my mind, but a big part of my life in the last couple months. And I've learned some things about how to rest well that I really want to share with all of you dancers out there. Why? Because we engage in an activity that is not only physically exhausting at times, but also mentally and emotionally exhausting. And it is so important that if we want to keep improving and giving our best in the studio, that we need to have something to give. In other words, we need to make sure we are not just resting in terms of like taking time off from dance, but that we're actually doing things to feel restored so that no matter how long you take off from dancing, you're able to come back and feel like you have more to give. You have a vitality to you. Especially in my job as a high performance coach for dancers, one thing I'm really passionate about is not just helping the dancers I work with to gain mental tools and techniques to be able to perform at an optimum level, but also a big part of my coaching programs is the element of mental well-being and emotional wellness. So we're going to tap into the mental and emotional aspects of rest in addition to physical. Of course, I'm going to give you 6 different tips in this video, or 6 different ways to rest in order to actually feel restored before heading back into the studio. So enjoy. Okay, the first way that you can engage with rest in order to actually feel restored is through the physical element of that. I will address the most basic one first. Instead of just thinking of resting as not dancing, I want to ask, what are you doing to rest? For me, what I've discovered really works is a couple of things. First, sleep is super important. Really don't ignore this one, dancers. There's so much science to support how critical actual deep sleep is, not only for your body repairing itself, but also your mind. Even your subconscious mind processes problems that you're thinking through or questions you're thinking through in your sleep, and it helps you to have more creativity, better perspective on issues you're facing in your life when you wake up. So many connections are made while we sleep, so it's really important to take sleep seriously and to delight in it. So sleep a lot, as much as you can. The other thing is to walk. Now, this is something that I want to be careful in how I discuss this, because for those of you who struggle to feel worthy of rest, maybe it's also connected to a fear of something like gaining weight. I think that's honestly a struggle that people feel, but they feel kind of ashamed to talk about. I experienced that as a dancer. I was always worried that if I took 2 full days off, then I'm not going to look very good on Monday morning. So if that's a struggle that you're having, I don't want you to hear that tip as an encouragement to over-exercise, because it's certainly not at all. The reason why I bring up walking is that this is totally anecdotal, but I have personal experience that when I was in college and I wasn't using my car to drive to class every day, I got to walk from my house to campus and to my dance classes. I actually was injury-free that whole time that I was walking to classes. And I didn't recognize that having that gentle warm up, you know, my muscles working, going up and down stairs, working in parallel positions rather than forcing my joints into turned out positions or stretching to warm up. I was walking, and it would give my muscles a really gentle way to not only warm up, but also cool down and reset. I even noticed to this day that when I go on walks, which I try to do several times a week, in the physical sense, it's very restorative because it allows your muscles to kind of ease back into a rhythm. I'm not really sure how to put it, to be honest, in a way that's scientific. I would be happy to have one of my friends who are experts in physical therapy or exercise science. I would be happy to have them talk about it on this channel. But I found that walking is very restorative physically. Now, obviously, listen to your body. Don't overdo it. If it's something that exhausts you and tightens your muscles, that's a sign you probably have gone too far. But just a simple, like mile and a half walk or something like that, a walk around your neighborhood, your area, can be so restorative for the body. So those are 2 great ideas on how to rest physically in addition to just sitting down, taking some time. Gentle stretching and foam rolling is also really, really great to reset your body for the week ahead. Now, the next few things I'm going to talk about really have to do with the idea of how to reset mentally and to feel restored. So here's my way of resting that I'd like to share with you. For number 2, it is to engage in activities that help you to get into what's called a flow state. That's really getting in touch with your subconscious mind, where you're very present with the activity you're doing at hand. You don't have a lot of chatter in your conscious mind, a lot of thoughts about the future or the past, or trying to think through something, or you're probably not even very conscious of yourself. You're just conscious of the experience you're having in the moment. This can be such a helpful and even restorative energy building experience when we engage in activities that help us to get into that mental state. So here are a few things that I do to personally get into the flow state, which is so, so helpful for resting. I will say before I get into the practical how-tos that this is the counterpoint to saying do not just distract yourself as you are trying to rest. Distraction is not rest. Now, what does distraction look like? It's scrolling through social media endlessly, just watching television, constantly listening to podcasts, going from activity to activity, social plan to social plan, never giving yourself a space to just have an empty mind. Now, I say empty, it's not literally going to be empty, but I'm really referring to a calm, conscious mind, that conscious part of your mind where you are aware of your thoughts, you're aware of yourself, you're projecting into the future or the past, rather. The flow state is in the present moment. It is so important to avoid distracting yourself if you really do want to feel restored. Now, of course, you can do this a little bit. There are no strict rules, but if you're struggling to feel restored by rest, ask yourself, are you distracting rather than relaxing? So to get into the flow state, what I recommend is doing an activity that can be quite mindless, and usually it involves working with your hands or something like that. So what I do is actually walking is a great one for this. I like to go on walks and I don't listen to anything. I try not to be on the phone with anybody. I just go on a walk and I specifically try to look around me and lift my gaze. Now, neurologically, that's actually really significant because science has been showing that how we use our eyes actually can trigger different brain states. It can trigger different reactions, not only in our brain, but also in the body. So when we are expanding our gaze outwards into like a big panoramic view and taking in all the details of the present moment, what that does is it actually triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, which is associated with a reduction in stress, a feeling of calmness and peace, low blood pressure, things like that, lessening in the release of cortisol, the stress hormone. Hey YouTube, me resting. This is my favorite spot. Oh my gosh. I go on a walk in here all the time. Well, you can't see the neighborhood, but isn't this just stunning? Like literally, I've just been sitting here, just not even thinking, just here, just watching the water. And hey, even if your area isn't this scenic, just sit, just listen to the wind, the water. Something so healing about it. Things like that. So that's why that's really, really important as you walk to engage in lifting your eyes and taking in your surroundings. Another thing is being in nature is actually really, really restorative. You'll notice that as you just take in your surroundings in nature, I notice for myself that I tend to feel as if I have a bigger perspective on what's going on in my own life, in my own mind. I'm able to engage in a higher level of thinking, a bigger picture that allows me to put the challenges I'm facing into perspective. They feel smaller, they feel more manageable. And for example, I'll give you another anecdotal story. I was in Florida last weekend for my cousin's wedding, which was a really beautiful occasion, and I got to go to the beach. I was with my sister, and I just laid back in the sand, and I closed my eyes, and I just listened to the sound of the water. I listened to the sound of the wind, the seagulls. I felt the rush of the wind on my skin. I really was present with the feeling of my body sinking into the sand. And as I just allowed my senses to be absorbed with the awareness of these things, I literally felt this sense that I could I actually gained awareness on so many, how do I put it? Like things I was overthinking in my life, ways that I was overthinking and overcomplicating my life, like telling myself I had to figure this out and know what I think about that and know what I believe about this. It just, so much of the chatter and the junk that I actually don't need to figure out, I just got this sense that I could drop it. And it was so powerful. It even gives me chills to think about. And I felt like I just got up from that literally just 5 minutes. 5 minutes, you guys. I wasn't like trying to meditate. I wasn't trying to like empty my mind, or I didn't go into it like, okay, I have to have a transcendent experience. There was no have to, no obligation. It's just like, I'm just gonna be here. I'm just going to enjoy it. And the thought just came. It was just such a beautiful experience. And I was able to recenter on what questions actually matter to answer it in my life personally. So I really, really recommend that. Another way to engage in the flow state, it's not just walking, but it could be cooking for you. That is for me. Even doing chores, I find that to be very restorative because I can just do something with my hands, do something where I'm moving and I don't listen to anything. I just allow myself to just be absorbed in the experience of what I'm doing, and thoughts come and go. And I find that I'm able to get into that restorative brain state and also get perspective on things that are important and not important. Hi dancers, I really hope that you're getting lots of actionable takeaways that will really help you. I want to talk about how to go even deeper in this work to really become the confident dancer you want to be, which is my signature one-on-one coaching program called the Confident Dancer Coaching Program. This is a 4-month experience where you and I get to work together individually to go deep into transforming your mindset, your emotional wellness, and your career strategy to really do that inner work so that you can experience the outward results in your career that you want. Because how many of us get to this point where we realize we can put all the work in, we can try so hard, we can do every workout, we can take every class, but if you feel like trash about yourself, if you don't have that confidence, if you don't have that mental toolbox available to perform under pressure, to go from overthinking and ruminating on a mistake to continue to perform your best. If you don't have that mindset as a performer, it's really hard to be the performer that you want to be and to feel as good as you can possibly feel in this journey that's supposed to feel joyful, right? It's supposed to be our passion. So what we do in this coaching program is we go deep into, like I said, transforming your mindset, your beliefs, all that mindset work that will help you to up-level your confidence so then you can practice different. You can take different actions. You can actually take all that technical work you've been doing and really become confident in it, because so much of it, it's not how much work you put in, it's also that mental component of how you see yourself, what you believe, what you think. That's what I specialize in helping dancers with, so that you can not only have a transformed mindset that helps you to feel your best and perform your best, but then put that into action in a way that helps you achieve your dreams and goals as a dancer. All the while you have support from someone who understands your world, no explanations necessary. So if that is something that you're looking for, if you're tired of struggling with self-doubt, insecurities, performance anxiety, all those mental struggles that are so common in the dance community, reach out. You don't have to settle for staying there forever. There is support that is specialized to help you get to the place you want to be. So if that's something you're interested in, I have 5 coaching spots open for new one-on-one clients every month. They fill up quickly, so be sure to check out the link below to my website, kirstenkemp.com. You can learn all about the program and apply for a free consultation where you and I will talk about your challenges, your goals, talk more about how the program works, and see if it's a great fit for you. So I can't wait to meet you, can't wait to support some of you, and enjoy. Let's get on with the rest of the video. The third thing is to engage in stillness. So I talked about the flow state and engaging in quote unquote mindless activities, but also stillness is really important. I'll go ahead and tie in the 4th point with this, which it has to do with not only mental restoration, but also emotional restoration, which is when we choose to be still. That doesn't just mean physically, though it can mean physically. It could also mean mentally, or just like in your thoughts, instead of planning ahead and being like, okay, what's on my to-do list? I have to do this, this, and this. Just choosing to engage with stillness for a short amount of time. I want to emphasize that there is no obligation or no formula with any of this. I think a huge umbrella principle for all these points is like, throughout our week as dancers, we are constantly strategizing, like, what do I need to do to get this, to improve in this way, to whatever. Now, a part of truly restorative rest is taking away all of the obligations, the sense of I have to do this, I should do that. And this is something I really learned through my faith in the practice of Sabbath. It's not something I do like really, really stringently, but as a Christian, even in my church recently, we've been talking a lot about Sabbath, which has been really, really interesting. It's a practice of intentionally engaging with stillness, silence, even solitude, in order to fully take in the feeling of rest, the feeling that you are loved, and the taking in the sense of reality that the world keeps spinning and going without your constant toil. Now, maybe that sounds a little weird, but I think it's actually really encouraging. We're reminded through rest that we are taken care of even when we rest. Like things that we have in our lives that are good come to us partially just as a gift of grace and not just because we're constantly working or trying to prove that we're good enough or earning everything, you know? So I wanted to bring that up because there's also a spiritual element to this, no matter what your faith is, that I think is really beautiful. Anyway, stillness. Oh my gosh, stillness. Here's how I love to do this personally, and this is really a tip for those of you who struggle to rest. You feel intimidated by stillness. It's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to think? And you don't want to be alone with your thoughts. This is for you, okay? I highly recommend if you have a window in your place, wherever you live, that you can look out of, just look out the window. Just sit there, look out the window for as long as you want to. 5 minutes, just set a little timer if it helps you. Just look out the window, look at the sky. If you don't have a nice window to look out at, maybe you have a pet, just look at your pet. I do that for a couple minutes. I'm just still. And it allows me to, again, notice my thoughts and even notice my feelings. If you don't have a window or a pet, is there anything, sometimes I literally look at a wall and I just look at the wall. I notice the details of it and I just allow myself to become aware of my inner state. Now, going into point number 4, emotional rest. I will say before I get into the ways to do it, what's really important is that you take an emotional inventory. You ask yourself, how am I feeling? And instead of just being like good or bad, go into what emotions am I experiencing? Or have I been experiencing in a recurring way throughout the week? Maybe you're not experiencing, for example, anger right in that moment when you're asking yourself, but as you reflect on the last week, ask what were some emotions that consistently came up for me? Just notice, do you feel like they could come up easily for you again? That is a sign that there are some unprocessed emotions. I love the quote, feelings are like strangers, they keep knocking until you let them in. Because what's so important about this is that we acknowledge that our emotions are not a nuisance to us. They're not something bad to get rid of. They might not feel pleasant, but they're actually there to help you. And when you acknowledge or reframe them as these are like care instructions that my body is giving me, or you could say your soul, your intuition, to say like, hey, I need you to pay attention to what's going on inside. Those emotions are trying to tell you what you need. So is it you need some alone time? You need to re-examine what you're living for. Or you need to re-examine how you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with, what your goals are. Re-examine your expectations. Emotions are such a helpful tool, and I think when we see them as such, as a gift that helps us to get to a place of wellness, if we acknowledge them and we know how to engage with them, pay attention to them, process them, then they can be a huge asset to us and not a bother. Ways that I do this personally is journaling. I'm a huge journaler. I recommend that everyone journal. And I'm gonna link some things below from Amazon, my favorite journals, because I think it just helps to have a pretty journal. You know, when I look at my journals, I'm like, you know, I want to open them. I put them on my bookshelf and I like to reread them every now and again to just see where I've come from and how far I've come. And then occasionally I rethink the fact that I have my journals on a shelf where anyone could just open them. And I'm like, maybe let's go back to that idea that was popular in like the 6th grade for me of like having a lock on your journal. Oh, I trust my roommates, I guess, for now. Another way to process your emotions is to not only journal, but speak to someone who you feel you could be transparent with. That's really important. Tell them how you're feeling, what is bringing that up for you, and what's on your mind. And just allow that to be unpacked a little through conversation, especially if you struggle to open up. It can be really helpful to talk to someone who can ask you questions to help you discover what your emotions are trying to tell you. And I certainly provide that space for my clients. So yeah, if you're looking for that one-on-one mental and emotional support as a dancer so you can optimize your well-being and therefore your performance, please reach out. That's what I do professionally. Okay, point number 5 is to engage in a creative activity. Tap into that creativity. This is so important because, as you can tell, this is a theme throughout the video. I'm trying to help you get into a different perspective, a different mentality, a different brain state, a different physical state so that you can have a sense of separation from just your normal hustle, which can open up new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and new ways of feeling for you that are very restorative. And by the way, to go back to the points about stillness and solitude and getting into a flow state, meditative state, all that stuff, if you struggle with that, a great tip for you is to remove yourself from your physical environment that you've been in all week. Whether you just go to a coffee shop, go on a walk outside of your neighborhood, just switch things up. Removing yourself from your physical environment does really help you to get your mind out of its constant triggers into old mental states. So if you wake up every single morning and your visual cue is like, I'm in the same place, that can actually trigger the same old patterns of or habitual thinking and feelings. So if you struggle with that, it's great to remove yourself from your environment however much you can. Okay, so back to the creative activities. Tapping into your creativity is so helpful for rest, and that might be surprising, maybe it's not, but it's really because creativity is about it's even in the word create. To create. What are we doing when we're creating? We are engaging in an activity that is all about making more from what you have. How do you do that? You first have to acknowledge that you have something to make more of. And then you even have to acknowledge, even if it's subconscious, that you can create, you can do, you can make changes. That can get you into an empowered attitude, an abundance mindset. It can remind you of what you have rather than what you're lacking, which can be such a restorative thing to be reminded of in an experiential way. So whether that is playing an instrument, drawing, cooking a nice meal, by the way, you don't have to be good at any of these things. Even better if you can enjoy yourself while not being good at it and just like laugh at how not good you are at it yet, or even find satisfaction in becoming better at it. That is so restorative. Lastly, point number 6 is to spend time with people who are outside of the ballet bubble, specifically people who live life differently and have a different mentality than you. I would recommend, as a bonus tip, find people you can spend time with who have a mentality that is somewhat opposite of your own in terms of like what you would like to gain in your mentality. So for example, if you struggle with looking at the bigger picture and having faith and trust and just calmness about what's ahead for you, try to spend time with someone who exhibits that mentality. By spending time with people like that, or someone who's very patient, someone who's very self-accepting, someone who has self-compassion, or they're not critical of themselves, they appreciate themselves and what they can do, or they're confident, whatever that is, spend time with those people, as long as obviously they are pleasant to spend time around and it doesn't just remind you of how you feel inadequate. Like if they're the right kind of people, you won't feel that way. I mean, right for you. But yeah, it's so important to surround yourself with people who have different lifestyles and mentalities and who are outside of the ballet bubble, because it just reminds you that the way you're thinking, feeling, and living is not the only way, and you can also just kind of take some of the great things that they have and apply it in your own life creatively. So dancers, this has been quite a long video. I had fun talking about rest. I hope that you take some of these things and put them into action. I'd actually love to hear in the comments, what are some ways that you like to rest in order to feel restored? And if you don't currently have an idea, I'd love to hear which of these points are you excited to put into practice. I hope that you have a very restful, evening or weekend or whenever you're watching this, whatever your next rest period is. I hope it is beautiful and restorative for you, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye.